Hello, my name is Chail Khalsa and I am a master student and a research assistant at the Lucerne University of Applied Sciences and Arts in German Hochschule Luzern. We are a university based in the central part of Switzerland in the beautiful city of Lucerne. And today I would like the opportunity to present my master thesis project to you, Anuvad. I started the project Anuvad. For those of you who don't know, Anuvad is the Hindi word for translate. I started this project about 3 years ago out of a personal curiosity of trying to explain smart textiles and e-textiles through the medium of traditional craft. There are a lot of words that are connected with this title that most of us think we know, but I feel it is still important to explain and clarify these words so that we all know that we are on the same page as we go ahead in this presentation. Now, the word craft. What is craft? Seems like such an important, or rather, better put, such an easy word. When we think of the word craft, none of us think, oh, what is craft really? It is something that we all think of as a very simple word, we all think. But the further I dived deep into understanding this word and establishing a definition for myself, I realized that everybody, each one of us, has a different understanding of this word based on our experiences, our exposures, our backgrounds, our cultures, so on and so forth. And while we all think of craft as a word that we all understand, it is highly unlikely that we all are talking about the same definition when we understand the word craft. So I feel it is important for me as a researcher and also for this presentation today to try to understand what is craft. Maybe this definition is not an all encompassing definition, but I think this definition would work in the context of this thesis. David Pye, a researcher in 1968, as you can see, was one of the first researchers to try to understand crafts and craftsmanship. Great, right? It's a great definition. But what is craft really? So, in the context of this thesis, I would like to establish that according to me, craft is handwork combined with a little bit of tools that aid the process of handwork. But all of this is set in a very strong context of tradition. Of course, this definition and my idea of what craft is highly based on my exposures as well. The fact that I come from India and most of our traditional crafts are in fact traditional, and I would like to carry this definition on forward as we talk further about the project. What are e-textiles? Interesting question. E-textiles, as the word suggests itself, are electronics embedded in textiles, simply speaking. So, e-textiles would be anything that has any kind of circuits embedded in textiles. It could be a textile that has just an LED lighting up. It could be a textile that has any kind of sensing capabilities. The possibilities are endless, really. But any kind of electronics embedded into textiles comes under the big umbrella of e-textiles. E-textiles is a part of a bigger umbrella of smart textiles. Smart textiles can be anything. So simply speaking, smart textiles could be geotextiles, could be textiles that are coated with fireproof chemicals. It could be a wide variety of other things, and e-textiles comes as a small part of the whole big umbrella of smart textiles. Dive a little bit further into where the project is placed. Like I mentioned earlier, I come from India. I have been working with the western part of India in Gujarat, which also happens to be my home state. Gujarat has in its northern region a place called Kutch, or rather a region called Kutch to be precise. Kutch is very, very well known for its wide variety of traditional textile craft practices, ranging from tie-dye to weaving to block printing to embroidery, you name it. They have almost all mediums of textiles covered, and all of these mediums are explored in their own unique way and are set in their tradition and done for a particular community as a part of their traditional attire. I decided to start with the village of Bhujodi. The village of Bhujodi, as you can see on the map, is a small village in the town of Bhuj. Bhujodi is known for what you see on the screen right now. It's a traditional weaving technique where the weaver, or the vankar as colloquially called, creates extra weft patterns that are woven while the fabric is woven, mainly on a wool base. Vankars used to create these stoles traditionally for the Rabaris and Ahirs. Both of these communities are nomadic cattle rearers. These shawls were made out of desi sheep wool, desi meaning local, and the Vankars used to weave that for them in exchange for a little bit of labor or money, or earlier, as the barter system used to be, sometimes some grains or milk, so on and so forth. Over time, due to lack of markets, lack of, as the barter system faded away, the weavers were forced to start creating their products to attract a larger target group. So while this is a great attempt in keeping the tradition alive, it's sad to know that even this is not enough today. Which is why my attempt is to see if we can work with Bhujodi as a technique which is extremely rich in its skill and craft, and perhaps come up with a range of products which not only expose the Bhujodi craftsmen to a more global market, but also keep the craft alive, and in the process perhaps engage the new generation of the craft communities back into the craft. Before I dive further into the concept, let's talk a little bit about the process. Bhujodi, like any other weaving process, has a very linear process, so to speak. But for those of you who don't come from a textile background, I feel it would be interesting for you to understand the process of Bhujodi before we dive further in. As you can see on the image here, Ramji Bhai here, the brother of Shamji Bhai, a master weaver, is counting threads on the warp. He is hand lifting counting threads, which is the core skill of creating these quintessential Bhujodi motifs. The warp making starts essentially by counting the threads. As you can see in the first image here, this is done by women. So Bhujodi as a process has a very clear divide of what is done by men and what is done by women. Once the warp is prepared, the warp is laid out flat in an open field depending on the length of the warp, where the threads are separated and, if need be, starched so that they are strong enough to hold while weaving. After this, the warp is taken onto the loom. Here the loom is what you can see in the third image. Once the warp is prepared and well tightened, the weaver can start lifting the warp depending on his weaving structure and weaving pattern required. The fourth image here shows you how the weaver uses supplementary wefts to create these extremely detailed fine motifs on the fabric while weaving. And the fifth image is what the output of Bhujodi weaving looks like. Coming back to the concept of craft and technology. Why should we combine craft and technology? As the slide says, yes, but why? Craft is, or traditional craft and even craft in general, is a very, very organic process. It has a lot of handwork involved, a lot of emotion involved, but in essentiality, the process itself is quite open and organic, which allows for us as designers, as researchers, artists, practitioners, whatever you would like to call it, to intervene at various touch points and explore this medium without having to break the process. In most craft processes, since their processes are so open ended, it allows for us to engage with these crafts, to do some experimental prototyping and sampling without exactly affecting the larger process, which I think is an exciting idea, and which is why it makes it the perfect medium to do some quick prototyping and sampling. And while it is mainly hand done, it allows us also to be exploratory, be experimental, and innovative. But what do the crafts get out of it? Well, traditional craft practices, as I talked about before, have shown a very clear decline. My concept is perhaps working with technology and these craft communities personally will not only allow us to create innovative ideas and prototypes, but will also engage the craft community, exposing them to this big bad world of technology, and perhaps give them some inspiration to create new products, new ideas, keeping them going and allowing them to explore new markets eventually. The new generation of these craft communities also have shown very little interest over time to continue their traditional craft practices. They are rather attached or interested in going and working with local nearby factories or doing some regular blue collar jobs as opposed to working with their families and continuing these craft practices. My hypothesis is that if we work with technology and craft, perhaps this new generation, which is obviously very adept at understanding technology, would be interested in coming back to their craft, and it would create a very nice exchange of knowledge between the old generation and the new generation, eventually resulting in keeping the craft going, as well as coming up with some new ideas and evolving the craft into the quote unquote digital era. Combining technology with crafts, where crafts already create their products with a deep sense of emotion and love, I believe we will be able to create products which have a deeper sense of meaning and design. Not only that, most traditional crafts, or especially crafts in Kutch, if I may speak, have a very, very strong aesthetic sense. On the other hand, as we already have seen, smart textiles and e-textiles tend to have a very techy, alien looking aesthetic, which doesn't always attract people into using or adapting these products into their day to day lives because they don't look like the products we usually use. I believe when we use crafts as a production or prototyping means to create these products, we will eventually be creating products that look like a part of our usual textile repertoire. However, having a more wider or a higher functionality. Wasn't this a conference on sustainability? I believe so. Then why am I talking about craft and technology? Well, I believe that the concept of combining craft and technology has a very direct and strong impact on sustainability. That puts me back in the loop a little. Well, the further we move into the future and the faster we go, our needs of consumption are going to increase exponentially. On the other hand, of course, smart textiles are something that is bound to sooner or later come into our lives in the future. And what if we're able to create products that not only provide for our evolved needs but are also products with increased longevity and aesthetics? Simply speaking, imagine a product that is as beautiful as the shawl you saw on the third slide of this presentation. There is also a shawl that has some heart sensing capabilities or some pressure sensing capabilities or can sense. Not only are we creating products that look beautiful, of course, because of the evolved aesthetics of these traditional crafts, but we are eventually creating products that help the traditional craft communities to grow. We are creating products using slow production, which end up with us creating products which are held with a lot more sense of emotion. Simply speaking, imagine a rug woven with traditional craft techniques that has embedded pressure sensing in it. For example, let's say hypothetically, of course, the pressure sensing stops working in the next 5 years, 6 years of usage. If the product is created using crafts, we are more likely to hold on to the rug regardless because it already has very strong aesthetics of traditional craft techniques as opposed to something that is completely flat plain made out of a power loom fabric. Obviously, this increases the longevity of the product, eventually creating sustainable smart textile products. All of this in the end, eventually, not only promises sustainable smart textiles, because as mentioned before, smart textiles are coming into our lives sooner or later. Why not, instead of creating them using mass production techniques, create them using crafts so that we are able to create products with a deeper sense of meaning and longevity. Having said that, not only does this concept promise that, it promises economical sustainability to the craft communities by creating products that have a global appeal, a wider market. I believe that pretty much sums up my concept, and I would be more than happy to engage in a discussion. If you're interested in this concept, please feel free to reach out to me on my email ID as mentioned in the first slide. Thank you so much.